Occasionally, during some projects, architects, engineers, and owners direct the contractor to alter the construction plan. So, this direction may be made to accelerate a certain portion of the project, delay the project, change a method of installation, or several other modifications of the contractor's plan or procedures. As these changes directly affect the cost of the construction bid by the contractor, compensation by change order may be necessary. The contractor's means and methods are considered to be under the contractor's control. Means and methods can be defined as the way in which the contractor constructs the designed product. Interference by the owner in these means and methods will result in extra costs. This type of change usually involves a dispute between the owner and the contractor, resulting in difficulties in settlement by change order. So let's see one example which illustrates an owner-directed change concerning means and methods. Example. So in a building project, the contractor's excavation subcontractor decided on using a track type hydraulic excavator for excavation of a sewer line trench. The excavation subcontractor's bid was based on the productivity of the hydraulic excavator, which was owned by the excavation contractor. There were no restrictions in the construction documents on the type of the equipment, access or protection of existing surrounding areas. The means and methods of the trench excavation were to be the contractor's responsibility. So as construction proceeded, the owner requested that the contractor use a smaller piece of excavation equipment to minimize the damage to the surrounding existing environment. Because the smaller piece of equipment was not owned by the excavation contractor, the rental rate exceeded the rate for the owned piece of equipment. The productivity of the smaller equipment was lower than the hydraulic excavator, requiring more time for the activity and resulting in higher labor costs. So the excavation subcontractor requested a change order for an extra amount for a directed change in means and methods. So careful analysis and comparison were necessary to prove the owner that the cost for the change was more than anticipated in the bid, as illustrated in figure 16.4. So next figure. So in this case, these were the estimates. So for example, the equipment cost was for the hydraulic excavator was $1,280 because the number of hours required were less and the hourly rate was also less. But in this case, number of hours required were more and the hourly rate was also more, and accordingly the labor cost also increased, and the other equipment cost was also increased. So the total cost for the hydraulic excavator was $2,080, and for the other smaller machine was $3,600. So it means that there was a net additional cost of this much, 3,600 minus 2,080, and of course some allowable overhead and profit. So the additional cost impact was $1,780. So therefore, in this case, a change order may be issued, which is an adjustment to the contract amount and or to the contract duration approved, accepted, and signed by the owner, architect, and contractor. So an adjustment to the contract duration is needed if the contract's schedule is impacted by the additional work or delay caused in considering the change order. Some change orders will not affect the contract duration. So many contractors contain a liquidated damages clause. Many contracts contain a liquidated damage clause, which stipulates a specified amount of reimbursement to the owner for the completion of the contract beyond the contract completion date. So, a liquidated damage is an amount stipulated in the contract document that states that the owner receives a compensation for impacted costs of late completion of a project. Liquidated damages are usually stated in a monetary amount per day, such as some $1,000 per day, something like that. So liquidated damages are not considered a penalty to the contractor for late completion of the project, but rather compensation to the owner for impacted costs of not being able to use the facility when expected and contracted. So if a change order affects the contractor's schedule, an extension of the appropriate number of days will be requested to ensure that the liquidated damages are not imposed for the impacted period of the time. So many contractors will also request payment for the impacted overhead or job site overhead for the extended contract period. The general conditions of the contract clause is shown in this figure. It is an example of a contract completion clause, including the liquidated damages. So what is that clause? So this is the liquidated damages clause. So owner and the contractor recognize that the time is of essence of this agreement, and that the owner will suffer financial loss if the work is not completed within the time specified in Article 2 herein, plus any extensions thereof allowed in the accordance in the Article 12 of the general conditions. So they also recognize the delays, expense, and difficulties involved in providing a legal proceeding, the actual loss suffered by the owner if the work is not completed on time. Accordingly, instead of requiring any such proof, the owner and the contractor agree that as liquidated damages for delay, but not as a penalty, the contractor shall pay the owners this much amount, $6,000, for each day that expires after the time specified in Article 2. So a liquidated damages clause may be written something like this. So this example emphasizes that the cost and time can be significant when related to liquidated damages. So considering the costs of job site overhead with liquidated damages, time is obviously an important factor in the construction project. Okay, so next look at the change order process. The sequence of events that follows is typical of the change order process. Although some construction contracts will require specific time frames and slightly different sequences. So first of all, the contractor notices a difference between the actual conditions and the conditions shown on the construction documents. The contractor notifies the architect via a request for information for varying conditions and requests the direction. Then the architect must respond to the contractor regarding what needs to be done. This is normally done in contract clarification. And then the contractor must determine if this clarification is considered additional work. If it is, the contractor must price the work as quickly as possible. The architect may prepare a proposal request followed by the official change order proposals, which is called as the COP, which is completed by the contractor with the pricing and requests for time extension. Then if the architect agrees that the price is appropriate for the work, and if the owner agrees that a change order is necessary, the architect can prepare a change order. Work is not authorized to proceed until the change order is signed by both the owner and the contractor. So as processing of a change order takes considerable time, the architect might issue a change a directive or field order for the contractor to proceed with the work immediately. So this change directive specifies a price for the work or a method to determine the price, such as cost plus a fee. The owner must sign the change directive. A change order may be a summary of the several change directives. So the procedure has been described in the next figure. Okay, it is a simplification and indicates the accord by all parties. The construction contracts have a more involved procedure than that considers all options. So this figure actually indicates a change order process under some specified documents. So the process in this figure for the change order is critical to follow for successful change orders. The type of notification and conformance to the time frame are essential to a change order. So time is of essence in this process. Authorization must be given for extra work to enable a compensation for that work. It is important that all of the notifications, requests for proposals, pricing, and other change order paperwork be executed promptly and accurately. So multiple changes occurring simultaneously impact field personnel with considerable project pressures in both managing the work and documenting the changes. So despite the pressures, proper notification and authorization must be made for each change. So managing the project during these periods of pressure is still necessary. Pursuit of compensation for changes occasionally takes precedence over normal project management, resulting in lower productivity and profits for the contractor. So the change order process can be initiated by any of the parties involved, but must be made in writing. These notifications must be made within a certain time period and in a specified format. As the process continues, the owner and the architect have opportunities to agree or disagree with the proposal from the contractor. So if the owner and the architect agree with the proposal by the contractor, the change order is processed. If the owner and the architect disagree with the contractor's proposal, the contractor has three options. So to revise the proposal, to withdraw the proposal, or to pursue the proposal as submitted. So as this process continues, the change proposal becomes a claim. So therefore, claim is an unresolved change request. So a claim as defined by American Institute of Architects, document A201, section 4.3, is a demand or assertion by one of the parties seeking as a matter of right adjustment or interpretation of contract terms, payment of money, extension of time, or other relief with respect to the terms of the contract. So this was the change order process, but unresolved change order process is called as the claim. Okay, so as I have just mentioned about this, the unresolved change request must be made within 21 days. Okay, and if we see that this is an example for a change or a claim notification required by the contractor to start the process. Okay, I will continue the remaining lecture in the next video clip.